Hi friends, today is Wednesday of Holy Week. So far in the week we began with the celebration of Jesus entering Jerusalem on Sunday. And then on Monday we heard the story of Jesus having his feet washed by the woman with perfume. And yesterday we heard Jesus teaching about the law of love. Today we are beginning the end. And today we hear about the preparation of the Passover meal. So I'm actually going to read two stories today. The first is from the Children of God's Storybook Bible, and it's a reminder of what Passover is, the story of the Israelites leaving Egypt. The second is going to be from Growing in God's Love, and it is the preparation of this Passover meal between Jesus and the disciples. But before I get into that, yesterday, I hope you were able to guess that we were in the Pathways classroom, Temple Square. Today, there's some hints on the wall and behind me that should be able to help you figure out where we are if you have been here recently. So without further ado, I'm going to read today's stories. Moses told Pharaoh, "Let my people go." But Pharaoh said, "No." So God sent plagues to convince Pharaoh to let the Hebrew people go. First, he turned the water into blood. Then he sent frogs and gnats and flies. And then the cattle died, and people and their animals got sores on their skin. There was thunder and hail, and a great cloud of locusts filled the sky. And darkness covered the land for 3 days. After each plague, Pharaoh agreed to let the people go. But then he would harden his heart and say, "No." Finally, God wept, because now God had to send the most terrible plague of all. "Mark your doors with lamb's blood," God told Moses to tell the Hebrew families. On that dreadful night, death passed over the streets, and through each and every Egyptian family, the firstborn died. The Hebrews called that night Passover, because death passed over the Hebrew homes that were marked with the lamb's blood and spared their children's lives. "Go, be gone," Pharaoh cried as he held the body of his eldest son. The Hebrews quickly left. But when Pharaoh saw that there was no one to build his pyramids, he hardened his heart once again. He sent his army to chase the Hebrews down and bring them back into slavery. The Hebrews fled from Egypt and at last arrived at the edge of the sea. They looked behind them and saw Pharaoh's horses and chariots racing down toward them. They were trapped. "God, help us!" they cried. Moses said, "Do not be afraid. God is with us." God told Moses to hold his staff over the sea. God blew back the water with a mighty wind, leaving a dry path through the sea. The Hebrews crossed over on dry land, the waters forming a wall on their left and on their right. The Egyptian chariots followed, but their wheels got stuck in the mud. The Hebrews watched in awe as the waters returned and swallowed up Pharaoh's army. At last, they were really free. Moses led the people in a song of joy. Then his sister Miriam shook a tambourine, and the women sang and danced to thank God for saving them. That's the story of the institution of Passover, of why it is remembered, of God's saving acts for the Israelite people. And today, now we're going to read about how Jesus and the disciples began to prepare for their Passover meal. When people celebrate holidays, they often eat special meals together. What kinds of foods do you eat at Christmas, or at Easter, or your birthday? Jesus and the disciples ate a meal to celebrate the Passover when they were in Jerusalem. When Jesus and the disciples went into Jerusalem on the day we call Palm Sunday, it was time for the Passover festival. Jewish people traveled from all over to Jerusalem. They came to remember how God sent Moses to lead them out of slavery into the Promised Land. An important part of the celebration was the Passover meal. Jesus sent his friends Peter and John into the city. He said, "Find a place where we can eat the Passover meal together." "Where do you want us to prepare the meal? We don't live here," they asked. "You will meet a man carrying a jar of water," answered Jesus. "He will show you an upstairs guest room in his house." Peter and John went to Jerusalem. They saw the man with the water jar. He showed them his upstairs guest room where the meals could be prepared just like Jesus had said. Later, Jesus and all the disciples came to the upstairs room. When the meal was ready, they gathered around the table to eat the Passover meal of lamb, vegetables, and herbs. Jesus looked around the table. He said, "I am glad to eat this Passover meal with you. It might be a long time until we eat together again." Okay, friends, that's it for today. See you tomorrow for Monday, Thursday.